Greetings, Patrick here, Eight Questions with, and welcome to the show. It is Wednesday. It is the middle of the week, and we are hitting it with style. First of all, I want to thank again our friend Corey for a great show last night. We had fun with him, and he's a very interesting young man, and it was great discussion about films and life. And thanks, Corey, for talking with me off camera too. That was always it's always fun to talk to the guest after the cameras go off. Tonight we have published author Angela Haas will be here in about 15 minutes. We hope. I I sent her the information. I'm looking at her Instagram, and it says last active in 8 hours. I'm like, well, that doesn't sound very promising, but she said that she would be here, so we are holding her to that. Um, we have faith in her that she will be here, and yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Now, she has written one book in her series called First Strike, and it is a combination science fiction superhero. She has a second book out that she's getting ready to launch, but I wanted to wait till she gets here to see if we can talk about it because I'm not exactly sure if we can or not. So I don't want to say anything beforehand. Um, so I'm just gonna just take it as it comes. Um, First off, I want to say hi to a couple of people, and especially if they're listening, I'd like to say hi to the owners of the Burger Yard over in South Lyon, Michigan. Hopefully, we'll be talking soon. I already looked at your already looked at your Instagram page, and your burgers look absolutely off the chain. That looks to be like a winning place to go to eat, and I definitely want to talk to you guys about Burger Yard and how you guys got started. It's going to be fantastic. Hopefully I'll be able to announce a date by tomorrow, and we'll be talking to them in sometime in July. That's always good, right? I'm always been trying to find more small businesses, and you'd be surprised how hard it is to get them to come out there and do it. Um, I've had several that said sure, but then they don't. I don't think they understand what goes into doing that interview. I always get asked if I'm looking for a job. Uh, I'm looking to promote. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to promote small businesses. But Burger Yard got it. They knew what I was up to, so hats off to them. Um, Today is July 19th or June 19th. It is my wedding anniversary today. Would have been me and Lorianne. We would have been celebrating our 20th year together as husband and wife. And there's a couple of other people that are very near and dear to me that are also celebrating their wedding anniversaries today. And that's Kelly and Dan, and I am so eternally grateful that they got married on the 19th. I think they have an awesome story, and I definitely think it was divine motivated. Kelly Goody, as you know, Kelly has been on the show before. She's a friend, a personal friend in life, and her and Dan got married on June 19th. I believe this will be, I believe this will be their third or their fourth anniversary. I want to say the fourth anniversary. Um, but I do know that Lady Valerie, our own Lady Valerie, is celebrating her 32nd wedding anniversary with her beloved husband Ed. She will not be in the chat today. She will not be wielding that hammer today. She is being treated like a queen and taken for an anniversary dinner tonight. So we will not see Lady Valerie tonight. Hi, Betty J. How are you? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hey, Gizmo. Gizmo is here. Betty's here, Gizmo's here, Anthony's here. Anthony has finally gotten to year 1997. That is awesome. And there is our good friend Mike. Him and I have been talking all day. We are going to be producing some new things here on the channel before too much longer. Um, I am finally going to be getting something I have been wanting for a long, 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 long time, and that is like a little intro to the shows here. Um, Most of the time, I always come up. I'm always cold. I mean, it's like 1 second you see me, you see the page, next thing you know, you see me. But I like the little intros people play. Like me and Al, we had one for the Midnight Society, which is absolutely it was really really cute. Um, yeah, I said cute because it really is. You see some bats and and yeah. Um, so we're gonna be rolling out some new things here for the channel to see if we can spark it up a little bit. Um, to help, and this will probably make it a little bit better experience for the guests as well. Definitely will improve my state of mind, that's for sure. Um, but let me ask you, because I'm gonna be asking you guys this a lot until we get this done. But I would really, 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 really like for you guys to go today, and I'm probably gonna ask this for like the next 10 shows. I really wish you guys would go down and drop a comment and tell me your favorite show that we have done. Who has been your favorite guest here on Eight Questions with? Um, you can name up to three. You can name three guests that you really, really liked, and drop them in the comments down below. If you have a little bit, if you're not entirely sure, like about the name, I have playlists that you can go there. I have one master playlist of everybody's been on the show, and you can hit that and then scroll through it. And then if you hadn't, where you can find the name with the person that you're thinking about, you could drop that down in the comments down below. But I think till now to the end of June, we're going to ask that question. I want to know your three favorite guests, and drop it down in the comment, because you'll be helping me and Mike come up with an idea for an intro. So that'll be cool. Um, yeah. I've been, I've been trying to get some writers back onto the show, and I met Angela. I met her earlier this month, and her and I were talking, and she has on her personal website, which I put down there. You can go and check this out. You can sign up and sign up your email, and she'll email you. Um, she'll email you. Basically, she'll put you through so you can read the first chapter of First Strike, and that's what I did. I did that, and wow, I'm impressed. um, I felt sort of bad too, and I really didn't follow up on this, and I don't think I will either. And that's one because I think it should go to somebody paid for it. Um, I asked for because I asked for a press copy of the book, a hard copy, and afterwards I felt sort of bad about that because I have to remember that things have changed from the time I used to work in music. Music back in the day, music, I could call up a label up there and say, "Hey, send me such and such," and 2 days later it'd be there on my desk. When I was doing my blog, I had contacts with Mill Creek, I had contacts with Art Exploitation, I had contacts with Warner Brothers Archives. Those days are rapidly closing. Getting press hard copies is becoming a rare thing. In fact, the only place I get hard copies now, and not all the time either, is from Cinephobia Releasing. Um, Not all the time, and I'm you guys all know me. I'm one out there beating that drum for those guys all the time. You would think that, hey, he's got to be taken care of. That's not how it works anymore. Now companies have to be really careful about that. Um, I was talking to uh, I was talking to another indie film producer, filmmaker, and he wanted to send me a hard copy too, but he was coming off his press. He was coming. I mean, he was going to send me a press copy, but it was coming out of his own stash. And I said, "Don't send me it. Don't. You don't need to send me that. Sell it. Sell it. If you get a chance, someone's sitting there offering you a whole cold hard cash for your movie that you made, out of your blood, sweat, and tears. By all means, you sell that. Um, I'll find another way to make it work." Um, uh, See, Mike says Karen Cleese is the one that is Mike's favorite guest. Yeah, that's got to be one of mine too. Um, will I win something if everybody says my channel? Um, let's see. Yeah, well, you know what? Jim, if you feel like you were the best guest, I fully expect you to put down and say, "Hey, I kicked ass." And you know what? That works for me, brother. That works for me. That was a fun interview. That was a very fun interview and a very brave interview at that. That was very brave. So so yeah, if you feel like you wanna go ahead and and say that you feel like you did the best interview, by all means, you go right ahead and drop that comment. There's no problem with that. Um, I just want to know what people think. Hi, Mika. How are you? Welcome back. All right. This is great. Mika was on yesterday, hung out with me and Corey last night. Thank you so much for coming in. Angela, I just heard from Angela. Angela is on her way in. So we will be having a show with the mighty Angela Haas. Like I said, her first book, First Strike, is really, really cool. I love those kind of books. Um, First chapter for free. You can read the first chapter for free, and then if you want to buy a hard copy, and this is awesome too. She is a published author. She has a hard copy book. So if you want an old fashioned book, if you want an old fashioned book like this, and this is like pages, paper, and everything else, Angela can sell that to you. You can buy First Strike and read it. The Cheetah and I highly recommend it. I was hooked. I was hooked on the first chapter. I was. I'm not kidding you. I loved it. Um, and it's part of it's going to be a part of a series. And like I said before, the second book is coming up soon. I'm just not exactly sure if I can mention that yet. I'm going to wait till Angela gets here, and then if she says that, that we can talk about it because it's not published yet. So I want to give her a chance to to announce that if she has a publishing date or what have you. Uh, Yeah, thank you so much. We have a lot of fun here, that's for sure. Speaking of fun, John Doomsday Crypt just walked into the door. Uh, no problem, John. Thank you for coming in. Doomsday Crypt, of course, you know you got John, you got John and Brett Wagner, the Lost Leatherface, tearing shit up over at the crypt every week. Okay, the doorbell has rang. Our guest is here, so please welcome in author and writer and creative multi hyphenate in Mariah Owen's words, Angela Haas. And here we go. There she is. I got
Hi there.
nervous.
Why?
I got because I sent the link in, and then I check make sure I open up the page to make sure that everything is okay. But it said last active 8 hours ago, and I go, oh, this is not this is not good. I mean, hope she's okay. I mean, but you had told me yesterday that I will be there.
Yes,
Um, yes, so I had total faith, and here you are.
I'm
So
here. Thank you for having me.
First Strike. What a kick-ass book.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
so much fun. I got the first chapter. I read it. I was telling the chat today that I had asked for a hard copy of the book, but I didn't follow up. I don't know if you noticed that or not. I didn't follow up because I felt sort of foolish and a little selfish because, like I was telling the chat, that in the old days, you would send out hard copies with no problem, press copies or what have you. You could do that without any problem. But with physical media, the cost has risen.
Oh,
Even mailing a book out to somebody these days, it's expensive. Even media mail.
it is, but it's part of the business. I am absolutely happy to send you a complimentary book for having me on. So that is no problem. Don't feel bad. I would love to do it. So it's totally up to you. Or I can send you the ebook, but if you'd like the physical copy, I'd definitely send you one of those. So happy to do that.
I would love to read it and review it. Is really what I like to do. I like to get it, sit down, read it. I'm old. I'm old, as you can see, so I'm still reading these right here.
I love those. Those totally inspired me. Those I used to devour Clive Cussler's books
You
because
know, it's funny. I'm actually doing a show tomorrow, and with the host, and the host and I we're going to be doing a watch party and commentary on Sahara.
Oh, real that was an awesome actually, I think the movie did pretty good. I mean, I think the casting was pretty good, but I'm sad that they didn't make any more. They just never made another
Well,
one. That's
do,
kinda
do you know the story behind it?
No, not why they didn't make a sequel, no.
So this is really interesting considering you're a writer and, you know, considering that a studio comes up to you and says, Miss Haas, we'd like to option your series. We want to make some movies out of it. Um, and so you say, okay, yeah, all right, show me the money. They pay you money. So so Clive Cussler back in the 70s, he was writing in the 70s. Dirk Pitt was just going, and they made a movie in England. Sir Lou Gray made a movie. It was called Race the Titanic. It came out in 1979,
Mhm.
and it starred Richard Jordan. It didn't do that well, and Clive Cussler was really not happy with it.
Yeah.
So that was it. He said that enough with Hollywood, enough with Hollywood. And there was never another Dirk Pitt TV series or movie. Well, flash forward to
Yeah.
2005. Um, they offered him the money again to make one of his books into a movie, and so he said, "Okay, we'll do Sahara." You're right, Angela. Sahara is a banging movie. That's a My only nitpick with the whole damn thing was I thought they miscast, only physically wise. They miscast a character named Al Gordino. He's a much bigger guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can see that, yeah. I
So
agree with that.
I love Steve Zahn, but he was not Al Gordino.
Yeah. No. No,
But
definitely not. Definitely
but
not.
there they are. They got a budget movie. They got a huge budget. They're making this movie, and Kai Cussler loses his damn mind. He's not happy with
Yeah.
the script. He's not happy with the cast. He's on the set. He's saying this isn't how it's done. He was bad mouthing the movie anywhere he could. They finally had to ban him from the shoot. They said you can't
Oh,
come on here anymore.
wow.
Well, the damage had been done because he had gone
Mhm.
around and ripped it so bad that when it came out, it was dead in the water. But
Yeah.
anybody who's seen that movie knows that that's really unfair because Sahara was a fantastic movie.
It was great. I really liked
Me
it.
me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Mhm.
now, since I'm really pleased to know that you know that story because as a writer, let me ask you a question. I mean, how much control should a writer have once the book is, once you sell your rights to the book and sit there and say, hey, like before because Clive Cussler had to know who the cast was, what basically the story was. He had to know all that. He wrote the story.
Mhm.
Yeah, they had to roll through the cast. They had to, and it's like I just couldn't understand. I couldn't understand what caused him to have that much animosity. Um, can you
Well
explain that for? I mean, as a writer yourself, can you explain maybe where he was coming from?
well, I can't speak for, Mr. Cussler, but I could say, I mean, when you truly have a vision in your head and it's rattling around in there for a long time because we always have a lot of stories like in our head until they come out on paper. But I mean, I absolutely have like dream cast if First Strike ever became a movie, and because I wrote it with certain people in mind. But I think I think Clive Cussler puts so much research into his books. He puts so much into it, and when you see it sort of come to life and it's not your vision, I think that might be where you would have an issue. But I will say there's a difference between the book and the movie always has to be different because you've got to sell a movie differently than a book. A movie has to sell based on you can't put complete unknowns in there because certain stars sell the movie, that they propel the movie, they market the movie. People will buy tickets because they're in it. And so you have to let go of a little bit and there has to be a little creative license because they are two separate entities, in my opinion. And certain scenes that look great on paper might not be so great on film and in live action, and so you kind of have to let the studios do a little bit, have a little creative license that way.
I mean, if you just look at the cast, I think there's probably 75% of the executive producers in Hollywood that when they saw the cast of that movie was just kicking themselves, going like, if I could just have a quarter of what they got for cast,
Mhm.
I would be a happy person. I can make an amazing movie. The
Right.
70s and the 80s used to call them like an all-star cast.
Yeah.
Sahara was like one of the last movies out there that really was, like advertised as, well before the Marvel movies hit, but
Yeah.
but it was like an all-star cast.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's um, now we don't really get that quite not like that on that level anymore. I just felt like, I think the other thing that maybe he was a little bit grumpy about, but I mean, it is hard, right? Because but you gotta know that when you sell your first strike, let's say that Lionsgate or Disney gets first strike, in your heart you know that they're going to have to make adjustments to that,
Mhm. Yep.
to fit their story. I mean, probably the most infamous one that's ever that we can think of that took a original story and changed it to his own vision was probably Stanley Kubrick with The Shining. I mean, he
Mhm.
that was not
Yeah.
the book, and
Right.
but I mean, as a writer, I think there has to be some sort of expectation that not every word that you write down is going to make it to the final script.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Yeah. But
Uh,
that I mean, from my position, if someone wants to make a movie out of First Strike, like, sign me up. I'm, like, ready to roll on that. Just to see some of it in live action would be absolutely amazing. So,
I
I
agree.
mean, yeah. So,
I
you have
agree.
some license, but they're 2 different things. They're gonna sell differently, so it's gotta be different for being on screen.
Over in the chat, our friend Mika says, agree that there has to be a creative license when taking a book to film. I hate to see that when the story changes drastically, however, like The
Mhm.
Shining, which is probably the biggest one I know myself, and
Yeah.
ruined the movie for me forever. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, just, but I understand that, I can understand that, certain things can't work and, can't work. And I get that, and of course, then you have the other extreme where you're waiting for a writer to finish writing his book, and you're waiting
Uh-huh.
and you're waiting and you're waiting, and your show that you're doing with this author is sitting dangling in the wind, and you finally have to come in there and clean it up yourself, even though you've been waiting for a year and a half, and we all know who we're talking
Right.
about here.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
that
Well, and
would be that. Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah, that was
caused its own uproar, but I think,
nothing they
I
could
don't know,
do.
I think The Shining is different because it was such a beautiful book, and I think horror, I can see where fans of the book would get upset about the changes, but sometimes in, like, where I'm in, like, that action adventure superhero space, I mean, you know, I would be okay with some changes because I probably wanna make them myself.
So let's go back to your roots here as a writer. Um, and I love the fact that you're writing in a field that's generally predominantly men oriented. When you think of, superhero
Yes.
stories and science fiction, military, space military action, it's always a male dominated genre. So it's really refreshing when a woman comes in there and puts her thumbprint down and leaves it there. Like, I can do this just as well as you, if not better. uh, you know, I mean, I read your first chapter and and going like, well, that kills Vince Flynn. Oh, wait a minute, he's already gone. He's already dead. Well, okay, well, you get my point. You just came in there and killed it, and I really do. Okay, so I said that about Vince Vaughn, but I'm not a fan. Uh, but I'd say what I appreciate about your story about about how you wrote was even in the first chapter, it says a lot. The first chapter of a
Right,
book, it dictates everything, right? And what it
right.
really taught me was the confidence. The confidence in your book and your actions and your characters just leap out at you. It's like, man, this is really good. This is why I said I really was interested in, like, yeah, I really want to see what's coming down the road. Um, so where did you get that? When did you start writing? How old were you? Did you keep a diary or a journal when you were younger?
Yeah, I always had a diary. I think because I'm aging myself, but I mean, when I was a kid, there was no technology, and I had a pink radio in my room, and that's it. And so that was my entertainment, but also I to pass the time in the summers, because both my parents worked, and I just started writing in just these spiral bound notebooks, just like writing. And I my one of my favorite authors, well, probably my favorite author is Douglas Adams. So I read all of his books, and that's who inspired me. So my stuff is more like Avengers. It's superhero fiction. It's not for anyone who loves hard sci-fi, just because I focus more on the heroes and their issues, specifically older women heroes. So like looking at, you know, as a woman in my universe, as a woman gets older, that's when she gets more powerful. That's when she gets her powers. So, what would it be like for superheroes to age? Like, I kind of look at that more than the classic space opera or like Crew on a Spaceship and First Contact. That's not really what my stories are. They're all superhero action adventure kind of stuff. But I love the tongue in cheek and just sense of humor of Douglas Adams. So I have a lot of sense of humor in there too, and a lot of zany stuff. So yeah, but it started when I was old enough to write basically, and I still have all those spiral bound notebooks of my early stories. And then I dusted for Strike Off during COVID when we were all locked down. I was like, why don't I do something with this? Because I have all these stories, and I finally started to think about publishing it. So that's my
Um,
background.
yeah, I love it too. I'm thinking older women superheroes too, and the first thing that flashes through my mind is the Sally Spectre
Hmm.
from the Watchmen.
Yep,
And we see that, and
absolutely.
yeah, um, we also saw that too in The Boys.
Yes, yeah,
Laurie Holden played an older superhero, and she abandoned
yeah.
her. Yeah, so that's
Well,
yeah.
one of my superheroes can turn hot flashes into fireballs. So I thought, why don't we take something we hate about aging and make it a superpower? So that's in book 2. But yeah, so that's kind of where my books land. They're just supposed
Now
to be fun.
now now did you obviously maybe maybe not obviously, but to me it's like you were obviously into comic books when you were younger. What were some of your comic books that you read or TV shows that you watched? Um,
I didn't have any comic books. I don't know why. I think I lived in like the mountains in Colorado. So like we're in a very rural, you know, on the side of a mountain kind of thing. It just didn't have, I don't know. We went to the library, but I never checked out comic books. But I loved X-Men. Those were my favorite superheroes. And I did, when I was old enough to have comic books, I started reading the Guardians of the Galaxy comic books. So those were like my favorite superhero ones, but you're shaking your head.
no, you're touching my heart right now. Are you talking about the Guardians, the original team with Charlie
Yeah,
X?
yeah, like I have one of those somewhere still. I probably should dig it
You have
out.
earned yourself a Hall of Fame spot on 8 Foot.
Okay, yay.
You have earned it 'cause that's my team. Starhawk, Charlie X,
Mhm.
Martin X. Oh my gosh, everybody talks about the new movies Guardians of the Galaxy. I can't stand
Right.
them. I can't stand
Really.
them. Did you oh, the second movie
I
when they're sitting there with Sylvester Stallone and he's like,
Yeah, that
he's
was
sitting there, this
terrible.
is oh, did you just like want to just get up there and go like, you know what? I'm gonna kick you. Oh my god, I was so mad. I was so
I liked the first one because I treated it as something completely different from the comic book, so I wasn't,
yeah,
like, expecting it to be the same, but I couldn't barely watch the second one, and I turned the third one off because I was like, "This is so weird, I don't even know what's happening." So, yeah, I think they lost their way, but yeah, the first
gosh.
one I did enjoy, but yeah.
Yeah, the second and the third one, I'm just like the first one, I'm just like, they took they took they took the wrong characters out of the wrong time,
Yeah, yeah,
just absolutely, here's Vondu. He's supposed to be here. If you're gonna have him, you gotta have the rest of the original team. But
right.
it looked like just James Gunn took a scissors, and
Mhm.
I can understand if Kai Cussler saw that when they made
Yeah,
Sahara. I can
yeah,
understand Kai Cussler going crazy like that, but I
yeah,
know they didn't. So, but yeah, that's how I felt with that too. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So
yeah.
I'm so impressed with that. You know about the first team. That's one of my favorite superheroes. When I grew up, I used to collect that book.
Mhm.
So the
Yeah,
Guardian. So that was your first. What's really funny in it is that though it didn't have that many females. I think it only
no.
had well Starhawk later on became both it was Starhawk and then her because
Right.
they could switch genders way ahead of its time, way ahead of
Mhm.
its um, but it didn't have that many women in the team. Um, and you love the X-Men
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Well, I mean, the X-Men, I mean, I grew up watching, like, the cartoons. So, we had Jubilee and
Right.
Storm and, like, so the X-Men cartoons, like, from the '80s and '90s, like, those were what I watched, but they were coming into, like, having more of a female presence in those superheroes, but what I noticed in all superheroes and what really inspired me writing for Strike was actually something I noticed in the movie Black Panther, because you have Angela Bassett playing the Queen, and Angela Bassett is, like, such a badass in everything, like, she's amazing, and
Is
she gets, like, scurried off into being protected and hidden. I was like, "Why can't she fight in the final battle? Is it because she's older? Like, give her a gun, have her kicking things, like, she can do it." Like, why is she, because she's the older queen in the first movie, she's not a part of that amazing female-led final battle scene, when they're out there, and so I was
battling.
like, why can't I wanna see women in tactical gear with weapons and superhero powers, but with white hair and crow's feet and, like, fighting, and so that's what my superheroes do, they fight, and they
It,
have a specific battle formation in battle, and so, like, it is has some military tones, but they're all older women, so that's what kind of inspired me.
no, I totally get it. I totally get that. I mean, I was just thinking about the older heroes and and what they do. It's like I'm thinking right now. I'm thinking about Madam Web. Here's Madam Web. They rolled it out, right?
I didn't watch it, but I've heard of the backlash, yeah.
Well, you have that, then you have WandaVision,
Mhm,
and there's two examples right there. Though I do think I think that they carried off a little better in WandaVision, but the
mhm,
character Agatha Harkness, it's not she's elderly. She's still
mhm,
powerful as well, but she's elderly.
right,
We don't know how old she is. And then
right,
Madam Web, the same thing. In the comic book, she is an elderly. She is elderly. She's guarded, but she's in her, she's in her 80s or her 90s. It's like hell, you could even go back there and say Aunt May. Aunt May was, even though she didn't
Right.
have powers, but
Yeah, exactly.
she still had an important voice to be heard. And
Yeah,
so, so I can I can see that there's not that much representation for they had to fight anyway, because
right.
you had to take women from I mean, if you look at some of those costumes they have, you look at them, you just shake your head, going like, it's so impractical, you know,
Oh, I know.
all, it's like wait, Superman's got Batman's got a damn armor suit on, and
Mhm.
he has to fight, but then you're gonna show off, someone with like Scarlet Witch wearing basically a bikini. It's like,
Right. No,
you
and
know,
that yeah, and my ladies are all in their own armored, uniforms. They're not in, like, scantily clad things. I have a bulldog over here, sorry, that's making noise, so I'm just trying to get her to stop it, I'm sorry. And if I'm turning around, she has to be with me at all times, but she's,
uh,
like, groaning
bulldogs
and doing stuff.
bulldogs are
Yeah,
more than welcome here. Yeah.
okay. So
So, well, now, other than the first comics that you saw, was there any other female author? Because speaking of elderly, like not necessarily superheroes per se, but if you go back to some of the books like Marion Zimmer Bradley, who wrote the Mist of Avalon, the Darkover series, um, there's different, most of there's some really good writers out there that wrote about Morgana Le Fay being a elderly spirit, elderly, powerful witch, still can stand her own power, still stands in her own power. Was there any other female authors that you read growing up that helped inspired you to where you're at now?
I not really in sci-fi, um, but I read a lot of, like, female poets, like Emily Bronte and, like, um, Jane Austen. I read a lot of those ladies inspired me to write, but not necessarily I didn't read a lot of I really didn't read a ton of science fiction. I loved because I just didn't like the hard sci-fi. Like, I tried to read Asimov, and I just was like, this is so complicated. This is my kid brain. I was like, I want something fun, and that's why I read a lot of Douglas Adams because he made me laugh. So I didn't read a lot of female sci-fi authors, but I just didn't know who they were when I was a kid. So I read a lot of Jane Austen and a lot of the female poets, and those just learning about those ladies did inspire me, even though it had nothing to do with anything I'm writing right now. So,
No, I don't mind some of the hard sci-fi. I mean, some of it's really good.
mhm,
Really, but when I was started getting into it, one series I read, which was sort of like a gateway, for me to go forward, was as far as I know, was still being written today. It's in Germany. It's a German series called Perry Roden, and
mm,
oh my gosh, they've been writing that, as far as I know, at least for 60 years. Different people coming in and writing different adventures. They try to publicize it here in America with Forey Ackerman, but they only published 120 out of probably thousands, and it did well for a little bit, but then after that, not so much, and so they ran for 120, and then I think they lost their license for it. But I read
mm,
that, and it had some really strong female characters in there too. Um, uh, you know, uh, um, and I appreciated that. And then I went on to more, you know, I guess bigger books, bigger names per se. But I felt like
yeah,
I had a good table setter. Like, okay, now I can
right.
understand reading. Um, I think that's part of what problem with hardcore sci-fi, like heavyweight. Sometimes it does get really, really dry.
Yeah,
It really is. I mean, I tried to read John Scalzi. I like the guy. I think he's a fine writer, but everything I've ever read of his has left me, running for the, refrigerator because I have
right.
dry, you know. Um, let's see.
Yeah.
Star Lord just walked in. Hi, Star Lord. How are you? Um, Yeah, so as far as I'm thinking, I'm trying to rack my brain about any really strong sci-fi, um, strong sci-fi women writers, and I have to I haven't really read a lot of sci-fi in the last few years, but I still remember reading Marion Zimmer Bradley. She was like, I used to read everything she put out. Um,
Right. Yeah.
what are some of the I mean, so everything you pretty much have gotten to where you're at, you really didn't have that much influence. Everything that came through your pen or through your typewriter really came through your own creative mind. That's really rare. That's really rare.
Yeah. I read a lot when I was a kid, but I didn't read in my genre. But what really inspired me more was just movies. I mean, that's more, I'm such a visual person, so I loved watching movies, and then that inspired my imagination. I always paid close attention to dialogue and things like that. So, um, I read a lot, but yeah, it wasn't necessarily sci-fi genre. Um, just because, well, I mean, I would read, some of like the Star Wars books that, people started writing after, like after stories and things like that of after the movies came out.
Yeah,
Um, but I
always say
liked that action adventure. I wanted like that with a little romance. There's always a little romance in my stories too. So humor, romance, but lots of suspense um but I got that from movies, like all just watching movies. That's more what inspired me as a writer.
what movies inspired you the most? Was it more the story itself? Was it the cast of actors, directors? What was the what looked for what sparked your interest?
I mean, I was down to like if there was a certain composer that worked on a movie, I was like, this is going to be so good because I could tell the feeling from the composer about what the movie was going to be like. I love Thomas Newman. He's one of my favorite composers. But anyway, that's a side note. I loved the original Star Wars. I watched those over and over again. Indiana Jones, all those action adventure movies. Just I don't know. I really wanted to learn how to write fight scenes because I just, car chases, fight scenes, that's the kind of stuff I just would devour. Any movie with that kind of stuff. Die Hard, just all those like amazing 80s movies. I just started to picture action heroes, and a lot of them were men, but I still could see a female doing the same thing. It just
Sure.
would be different. So,
That's what I really love about the character of Wonder Woman is the fact that
mhm. Yeah,
DC has always written her as it all depends which day it happens, but
right.
but she is Superman's equal.
Absolutely.
She
Yep.
definitely is. I mean, they because and like I said, it's all depends which day they fight, or who writes it, I guess. But
Yeah.
she can take him. She can take him.
Yep.
And I've always admired that for DC for doing that because back in the 60s, Superman was next to God. I mean,
Mhm.
it
Oh,
was like,
yeah.
but then once they brought him back down to more range, it made it more interesting. Now, I personally feel everybody always talks about Batman and Superman. That's no fight. It never will be a fight. It just
No.
never
No.
would.
No.
Superman and Wonder Woman, that's a fight.
Yeah, I did always watch the original like Hulk TV series and Wonder Woman. When she just would start spinning around and then she became Wonder Woman, I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And it
Oh
was
my
all
God.
with cheesy special effects, which I love. We're so CGI'd everything. I just loved how that's why I love the original Star Wars because they actually built a lot of those sets, like that was a set. It wasn't a green screen, so that's what I miss about all those movies. Um,
I
they
think
actually
it's
had extras instead of like a CGI army in there.
let's see. Fight scenes are their own well-crafted dances when done the right way. One of my favorite, Michelle Yao, is in Crouching Tiger, Hidden
Hmm.
Dragon. That's
Yes.
an awesome fight. Beautifully done. Talk about badass women. Yeah. Talk about yeah. All three of them. All three of them.
Mhm.
Xiao Yao
Mhm.
and the young girl and Jade Fox.
Mhm.
Uh, People didn't realize that Jade Fox was a huge martial arts star back in the
Mhm.
60s and 70s. I mean, and you can still see that in her character in that movie, how absolutely stunning she really was. Um,
Yeah.
and go back and watch her in a martial arts movie, and that's one thing too. We talk about equality. Man, they I got to give it to Asian martial arts films. They probably were more leaning forward as far as making women equal to men in a fight than anything
Mhm.
on the Western side.
Yeah.
O
Yeah.
Over here, you would, if you really wanna read some really horrible, horrible dialogue writing, read anything that Stan Lee wrote in Marvel Comics in the '60s to the mid-'70s. Oh my lord,
Yeah.
it's so painful to read. It's like,
It was a
you're talking
different time.
oh, it's not the entire excuse. I can't excuse the entirety. Part of it was
Yeah.
because the book wasn't very good. Um,
Right.
the um, see, Linda Carter is a legend.
It's
Yeah,
legend.
but there was one before Linda Carter, though, when it comes down to female superheroes. There was one before Linda Carter that no one will remember. But
Oh, well, wasn't it Batgirl? No, Catwoman in the original Adam West
yeah,
Batman?
I'm gonna talk to someone with a little bit more. I mean, Yvonne Craig did do Batgirl, but I was thinking as far as on the Wonder Woman class, who would have been Joanna Cameron in ISIS, came out in
Mm,
1972.
yeah, I didn't see that.
Oh, it's a really good series. It's actually it's low budget, low no budget, but they CBS made two series. They made one on Shazam, and
Mhm.
then they made after Shazam became a hit, then they did ISIS, and then they had crossovers
Hmm,
episodes. It's on YouTube.
I'll have
You
to
go to
check that
YouTube,
out.
type in ISIS. Yeah, all the episodes, and for where it was, and at the time, yeah, she was ahead of Wonder Woman in that respect.
Yeah.
And before that, Kathy Lee Crosby did a Wonder Woman movie too, but that wasn't very good. That was not.
Mhm.
We really talks about that, nor should they. Uh, it, it just was everything wrong about the character. It had been Yeah, there's nothing. The only thing they had in common with Wonder Woman was the name of the movie, and that was it.
Yeah.
Um, so what kind of movies did you watch growing up? I mean, was there were like, was it all sorts of movies? Did you like horror more? Did you like the superhero act? I mean, there wasn't that many superheroes. I mean, well, I guess 2000, yeah. So, I mean, did were you big in the 90s movies? As far as that goes, watching.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I did not watch a lot of horror because I had such an active imagination that I already had, like, a lot of nightmares. I just didn't need anything else to give me inspiration there. So, uh, I like ghost stories, but I don't like other horror stories. So, anything, John Hughes, Brat Pack, any of those movies I loved, and then just all um like I said, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, but, like, I love when Jurassic Park came out, I was like, "I this is everything." I love dinosaurs because I'm 12 inside. So, I just was like when I saw that, I was like, "This is amazing. I love this." I think the '90s there were so many good, especially, like, '94, it seemed like there's so many good movies coming out at that time, you know? Um and then later, like, when the Jason Bourne series came out and, like, I love all that stuff. I don't know, I like action movies. I
So
just like that suspense.
you must have been really excited when during the early 2000s when the MCU started
Mhm.
happening. That must have been just like, as far as creative wise, you must have sat there and said,
Oh, yeah.
someone's finally listening to us. Like
Mhm.
we can be superheroes. We can do that. Um,
Mhm.
you know, I appreciated the comics. Like I loved George Perez and John Byrne. I loved the way they drew women because they loved women. They loved them, and you
Mhm.
could see them in their art, even though they're still wearing the skimpy outfits. But later they were all defined. And if you go back and look at what their drawings and what have you, it's badass. I mean, they loved women, and it showed in their art. Um, but because I'm just thinking about some of the '70s because I'm older than I'm older than dirt. I'm just thinking about the
No.
'70s, and I was thinking about the '70s and '80s, and I'm just thinking about women really didn't, even when they were policemen, even when they were cops,
Oh,
they
yeah.
always
Mhm.
had to have that man there to protect them. Like watch out, and it's like, or they always had to go undercover looking like a hooker. And it's like, well, you
Mhm.
don't have a guy doing that. Why does it have to be a woman? Why does that have to be like that? I
Yeah.
know people say, well, it was just the time. It was just the time period. You know what? That doesn't excuse everything, nor should it.
Right. Right.
Um, I love the fact when 2000s came, and but if you really think about it, though, Angela, the powerful women that we know now, like from superheroes and whatnot, it
Mhm.
really did start from horror, though.
Yes. Yeah. But also, I was thinking, well, like, we had, the Terminator,
Mhm.
Linda Hamilton, Aliens, like, I did watch those movies, and those kind of women really inspired me. Even The Princess Bride. If you watch The Princess Bride, Princess Buttercup is pretty badass because she is just, like, doesn't take crap. She pushes Wesley down the hill, she tries to escape, like, she wasn't a pushover. And I loved that about her, even though she was still a princess, know? So,
Right.
I still was inspired by those strong women in sci-fi and fantasy, so,
I love the fact
yeah.
that they were, some writers, producers, they weren't afraid to make the women badass, like the villains,
Mhm.
like,
Yep.
and like I'm thinking about like V, I mean, bad never looked so good back then. I mean, they used to talk about Faye Grant. She was the rebel leader, and for me, it was for Buck Rogers. Buck
Mhm.
Rogers came in the '80s, and everybody was talking about Wilma Deering, who played by Aaron Gray. I don't know about anybody else, but me, I was sitting there looking at Pamela Hensley, played Princess Ardalia, who was the bad guy, and I was sitting all about, well, I know it's supposed to be good, but she makes bad really good.
Right.
She makes bad look
Yep.
really good. So, it was cool to see that, hey, women can be, not only can they carry their own weight, but they can be bad doing it. They don't always have to be the, oh, darling, like, be careful, and oh my gosh, are you okay? It's the stuff you hear, the dialogue, some of
Mhm.
the books, just painful. Some of
Yeah.
the dialogue from the TV movies and series, like, are you okay? Are you hurt? It's just like,
Right.
let a strong woman just exercise, flex a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
now, past the 2000s, I mean, we're talking about horror. By this time, I think women really did get a jump off really strong, though, because you had Jamie Lee Curtis, played Laurie
Mhm.
Strode. The term "final girl" came into play, where in the horror genre, always the women were always the last ones standing. Now they may be the
Mhm.
virtuous ones, in the vision of a man. Is a man's interpretation of a woman being virtuous. Okay, she
Mhm.
doesn't smoke, she doesn't have sex, she doesn't, so we'll let her live. Well, doesn't mean the other person that you're killing off is a bad person at all.
Right.
You-
Right.
uh, Um, and now when you write some of your characters for your series, I mean, do you have some characters that are rough around the edges? I mean, they're not all pristine, angelic, right? There's some out there that are smoking a cigar and toting up a machine gun over their shoulder, but they're still powerful. They're still good people, right?
Right. Well, I mean, all my ladies are different. I mean, Stella, who is actually the protagonist of book one, I mean, she's a surgeon. So she kind of is pretty much a control freak. She's kind of rigid, you know. She just, I mean, I know surgeons and they're kind of like, they have God complexes for a reason. Not all, but I'm just saying the ones I know are pretty, you know, I mean, you want them trying to save your life, but they're not very sensitive. Um, but you know, she learns to trust the people around her and give up some control. Whereas Marlene, I love that name Marlene, although it's a little old fashioned, but she's the protagonist in book two. She's a mess. I mean, she's late. She just, you know, kind of she takes her shoes off when she's nervous and she just kind of, but she has to find her inner strength to save the day. So what I love writing these women, and then I do have an older woman superhero. She's a keeper of strength and she smokes cigars and she's a smuggler and wears trench coats, and but she's still feminine, you know. I mean, um
Love
but
it.
what I don't like, I like women who are still vulnerable. What I don't like seeing in today's action, you know, I feel like women were portrayed as weak, and now we've gone way too far in that, like, every woman is just super strong and they don't need help and they don't need men and, you know, or women. I'm just saying, you know, from my point of view, it's like we just don't need anything and we're just strong and we were always strong and there's no journey. And I don't like that at all because that's not realistic. I mean, I'm a strong person now. I wasn't always. So I
No, we
like
all grow. We
when,
all grow.
right. I want to see how a woman became the badass, you know? I identify with that. I love the new Netflix show, and I read the books and they're amazing, by Matthew Quirk, The Night Agent. I don't know if you've seen that. It's the perfect female protagonist because she starts out scared and vulnerable, and she should be because there's assassins in her house. Like, no one would not be scared of that moment of people trying to kill you in your home and you don't know what's happening. But as time goes on, she becomes this badass and you're rooting for her. And so those are the kind of, all my women are on a journey and you see them change and grow into being a superhero. So that's how I try to write my females.
Now, how if you don't mind me sharing, this could be a trade secret. Um, but how do your women get their superhero powers? Are they mutated into them? Are they chemically given to them like in the boys? Are they born with them?
It's almost like it's kind of is a part of aging, honestly. As a woman gets older, some women have this, I guess you would call it a mutation, but and it kind of come out of a trauma, like if they've experienced trauma and that just starts sparks something in their bodies. Um, and then they just start to realize as they've gotten older that they have these, I guess, scientifically genes that have carry these superpowers, but they it only happens as they age. That's where they start to appear or emerge.
Now, does that include them to having longer lives because of that? Like,
Yes, yes.
oh, okay,
They
that's cool.
still, well, my theme is that women are stronger together because I worked a lot of, you know, just corporate and the different jobs I've had. I've seen a lot of women that aren't very nice to each other, and when they are competing for something they tend to compete and hurt each other instead of like work together. So,
Right.
you know, my superheroes have to go into hiding and they have to separate from each other, and then that's when they start to age rapidly and start to, like, their powers start to decline. When they're together they're strong, and that's when they're most powerful. So that's kind of how I wanted to write it, showing that women are stronger together.
I'm
So
actually thinking of a character that would have fit perfectly in your world, and they had elements of that, working together and being strong as they got older. And that was in The Incredibles, Holly Hunter's character,
right.
uh, Elastigirl. I know, right?
Yeah.
Elastigirl is like, it's not
Mhm.
anymore. Um, but her character, I really loved how her character was portrayed. she was older. She was a mom. She had her own insecurities. She had her
Yeah.
own. Got older. And she had her doubts. Things that she was. She had her like I said, insecurities. And I thought, even for an animated character, I thought that was one of the best women characters that was ever written. I really did.
I I absolutely agree with you, but also because you also saw her vulnerable, stressed moments.
Well,
I mean, even as superheroes and women, we try to do it all, but we still get stressed and we still get frustrated and we want to scream into a pillow, and that's okay. That's normal. But I'm glad you brought that up because she was a great character because she was calm under pressure and she knew what to do, but you still saw her vulnerable moments, and that's what made her like one of the greatest characters,
I tell
honestly.
you, like I said, even though it was animated, that scene where they're flying over to the island and they're under attack, that
Mhm.
is one of the most intense 5 to 6 minutes I've seen on film.
Right.
I was
Mhm.
so I still remember this because we're talking about it. I was clutching my seat so hard
Right. It
because
was a
I was with
cartoon,
her.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
was such a great portrayal, and what she was going through, and she was just amazing. At the same time as you could hear her, her calm to alarm to her terror. She's terrified toward the end because
Right. Yes.
and it's like all
Which
within that 5 to 6 minutes, and you just really wish that you could have sat there and watched Holly Hunter do that, behind the
Mhm.
scenes. I would have loved to seen her in the studio voice acting that. That
Oh,
would have been,
yeah.
yeah.
That would've been really cute. That would've been really cool, honestly. Yeah,
Uh,
and that's what I loved about it because you could still see that she overcame something instead of her just being strong forever. We just don't know why, you know? So, yeah.
it's funny we're talking strong women here on my wedding anniversary, and so I'm going to take a moment off to acknowledge a really strong woman, and that would be my wife. Um, my wife fought cancer for 2.5 years, and I never saw a stronger woman in my life. And I'm very proud of her. She gave it all. She gave everything. She didn't leave anything on the table. And you would have really liked her a lot. She definitely would have been one of your characters in a book. I
Yeah.
would have liked to seen how you would have wrote her, but yeah, I'm just thinking of strong women. I'm thinking, man, that would
Yeah.
be for sure. Um, uh, so let's talk a little bit about your process itself. Now, now, have you, when you were younger, and I love the fact the idea because now you know what I can mention this and you'll know what I'm talking about. I love the fact the idea that you kept all your old writing because you have a
Mhm.
writer, don't you, underneath your bed or in your closet,
I have a writer's what? You cut out for a second.
a writer's box where you put all your
Yes,
old
mhm.
writing.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's everywhere. Yeah.
I'm sitting
Yep,
here, I'm having dinner. Let's see what I wrote underneath here. Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I
yep.
love. How do you hold on to your ideas? Do you dictate into the phone? Do you write them? Do you write? Do you put a time aside where you're just sitting outside with the bulldog and a cup of coffee and thinking about characters? Um, how,
Um,
how do you how do you draw
yeah, I mean,
inspiration?
I'm what's called in the writer's world a pantser, which is the opposite of a plotter, and, it means I kinda fly by the seat of my pants, so I have a lot of ideas all the time, and I've learned to just start. I write in Scrivener, which is a really great writing software, so I just start writing the ideas down or start fleshing out outlines, so right now, I'm drafting book 3 in my Keeper series, but I'm also halfway through a romantic comedy,
Okay?
and
We need more of those.
I started a thriller with, like, a female detective based in Colorado Springs, Colorado,
Okay.
um, because there's this program on the Discovery Channel, and it's like Lieutenant his name is Lieutenant Joe Kenda, and he was one of the most successful, like, he closed over, like, 400 cases in Colorado Springs, so there's a 9-season series that follows his cases, and it's all based in Colorado Springs, and so I had this idea of a female version of him, basically, um, because in Colorado, I mean, what would it be like to solve a murder in a while a wildfire is going on? You know, we have so many elements that you can play with. So I've got that series, book 3, romance. I just write them down, and then whenever I'm feeling inspired, I just write. So I don't use a lot of dictation, but I do have a ton of notebooks everywhere, and in my car, by the bed, a whiteboard right here. Anything that pops into my mind, I just write it down so I don't lose it.
Um,
Yeah.
Mika mentions, wow, female version of Jill Kenda. She loves that.
Yeah.
Uh, why not?
Yes.
Why not? I'm a huge PI guy myself. I love a good woman detective. Um, I read the Lillian Braun series.
Mhm.
That's because I have one of those, and he's right pestering me right now. He's doing what you're doing. Okay, Paladin, come on, come on, come on.
Yeah, Lillian Braun, that was one of the
Close to-
first mysteries I used read. I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, they're
Didn't she
super
have,
cute.
like, paw prints on the covers and stuff, like, something like yeah.
Yeah, I think those are really cute myself. Um, but I read Andrew Vax. I read Robert Parker before he got too comfortable. Let me bring that up. That's an interesting question I wanted to ask you. Have you ever? I mean, who are some of your favorite writers that you've read for a while?
Mostly just, like, Douglas Adams, and right now, I didn't know anything really about romance, but it is the number one it's the number one genre right now.
It
About
is.
$1.47 billion dollars in romance book sales last year. So if you can write a romance, I'm hoping to make it big with my romance. So, but I'd never really read romance, and so I started reading romance, and I'm loving, Rebecca Yaros's romance. She wrote Fourth Wing. I don't know if you've ever heard of that book, but it's a very big book right now in the fantasy world. It's about 20-somethings attending a dragon war college, so it's like angsty 20-somethings and dragons, so it's like the perfect mix. I'm reading her books and loving them, and just reading Emily Henry romances, which are just really sweet, wonderful, well-written romances. So it kind of changes. I mean, I used to read a lot of Shakespeare, so it's
Okay.
just I was an English literature major, and so I just kind of read everything. Um, but I love Clive Cussler. I used to devour his books, like just all his books. Some of the newer collaborate, were like it was him and someone
Pretty slow
else.
down. Yeah, yeah,
I
they
don't
slow.
like every author he collaborated with, but I do. He's one of my favorite authors. And Carl Hyacin, or Hyacinth, I can't
I think.
pronounce it right, but he wrote Striptease and Big Trouble, those kind of snarky Dave Barry. I love Dave Barry. I love all the funny guys. So
Like Elmore Leonard, he was pretty snarky.
yes, yes.
Um, I just actually read that Danielle Steele is out there still writing, and she just got
Yep.
done completing her 212th book. Wow, that's a lot. That's a
Amazing.
lot.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the
Yep.
chat real quick. Mika wants to know. She would like to know some of your favorite writers, and we're talking about that now. That's I. You know what? I won't lie. I grew up. I grew up. I read a lot of the books my mom read, and so I got introduced to Judith Krantz at a very young age, and that was
Yes.
I
Yes.
in fact I don't
Yeah.
even know I don't even know if some of her books could actually be put on shelves these days.
Yeah,
She
I don't
wrote she
know. I
wrote
mean,
she wrote some scenes in
yeah.
there that would be people. Yeah,
Well,
Um,
VC Andrews was like, I remember my mom gave me Flowers of the Attic. I'm surprised now that you read it. You're just like, whoa. But she was everywhere. But I don't think that, I have not seen her books anywhere, mostly just sort of
no,
like
I
in the
don't.
back of the used bookstore.
Back of that corner. Um,
Right.
let's see. I can see that we need more love in the world right now. Great book.
Yeah.
People go through unimaginable things. I don't think I would be able to handle myself personally. You know what? That's what a lot of people say until it's come on to them, and then you'd be surprised at how well you do react. See, Danielle Steele still going strong. Nora Roberts. I enjoy Nora Roberts a
Yes.
lot,
Yeah.
and
Sandra
Anna
Brown. Yeah.
are big in the romance genre. Sandra Brown. Yep. I read Patricia. I read Patricia Cornwall too.
Cornwell. Yeah.
Yeah, I like
And
her books
Janet
too.
Ivanovich was always like those books were always good. Janet Ivanovich, that's
Yeah,
definitely
those
fun.
books are really good, and then so was so was Sarah Petoskey. But I
Mhm.
tell you one thing that really got me was, again, we'll go back to visit Clive Cussler. I'm thinking about Clive Cussler. He's sitting over there. He's bitching and crying about Sahara. Man, I would have liked to take him by the scruff of the neck and walked him over and sat him down there and made him watch Two for the Money and VR
Yeah.
yeah, because
Yeah.
if you really
That
want to
was
see how
terrible.
badly one of your characters could get messed up, look at those two. I mean, if
Oh,
anybody
Two
had
for the
any
Money
reason
was
to think,
terrible.
oh, it
But
was
I
just
think at the time people started to not like Katherine Heigl, so, that she just was not the right person for that at all, in my opinion, so, yeah, that would be heartbreaking if it was really that bad, I guess.
I watched them. I personally didn't I was okay with it because I looked at them like a lot of books, a lot of movies. Someone like that, Two for the Money or VI or Warshawski. I looked at them like comic books because every comic book has an origin. So you have to
Mhm.
get the origin to the audiences to know the character. So it's not going to be the big flashbang story that everybody expects that you expect as a fan. Like, oh my God, she's amazing. She took on a
Yeah,
whole army. She took on a whole army. Yeah, but that was in book 34. Most people who haven't read her won't know that because they've never read book number one. So you got to go back to book number one to introduce them so they can get ready for book 34. And
right,
a lot of times people
right,
don't understand that. Fans don't understand that when the movie doesn't do that well because it's like, well, it must have sucked. No, it didn't suck. It's just that people just didn't know who the character was. And so, that's
right,
you got
right.
so um
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm with you though about the collaborations though. I see collaborations, especially when an author passes away. Um Sometimes I tell you that I like Robert Parker toward the end there, he was fat and sassy. I mean, he could sit there and close his eyes and write a Spencer book. And the thing that it was because he's so comfortable, there's no challenge for him there, and the work
Mhm,
suffered. I mean, the last 5 or 6 Spencer books were they were painful, and I was a huge
mm.
Spencer, and then once I read Andrew Vax, it was game over. After that, I never read Robert Parker the same. I never read anybody the same again. Um,
Mhm.
if anybody ever wants to read a really good series, um, you need to read the Andrew Vax books. They are the Burke series, the best fiction I've ever read on any level. It's so out there. Um, yeah. So, can we talk a little bit about? We've been talking about First Strike, and I was hesitant to talk about the second book in this series because I wasn't sure if it had been published or yet set a publishing date. Can we talk a little bit about the second book, or do you want to
Oh,
wait?
no, I definitely it's in, proofread stages, so it should be August, I think, by the time I get through all the proofing and layout, and so I'm hoping August, but yeah, it's done, it's ready to roll, it's ready for everyone's loving arms.
Did you have an
So
easier time writing it?
Yes, because and I think it's better than First Strike. I'm pretty hard on myself, so I have, if I could go
Yeah.
back and rewrite First Strike, I probably would, but you can't do that. You have to just keep going forward, and I learned a lot, um, and I read a lot more. So, Seconds to Oblivion, that's the name of book 2. Um, it's much better, and I think I just learned from, reading my reviews, which can some of them that are hurtful or painful, but it's all learning. I have a lot of good reviews and I have some, we call them the sci-fi bros. They kind of look for things to complain about, even though my book is not for people who love hard science fiction. It's just not for you. Um, so, but people complain that the physics aren't not or non-existent. Well, this wasn't my focus, but I still need to be present and learn from a statement like that. So I really tapped into my friend who loves hard science fiction, and I worked with him a lot to help me with some of the more sciencey things to make sure that they were a little more accurate. Some of this takes place in the depths of the ocean, so I had to really do a lot of research and make sure I had my deep ocean sea vent facts right, and
So that
working a lot.
coffee, coffee, and 12 Aquaman cartoons to watch.
Yes.
Um,
But yeah, no, I think it's better. I think it, I love it. So, but yeah, but I think it's a better book.
you mentioned something too that I'd like to get your opinion on. You're talking about critics. Man, I did not. I mean, is it safe to say that book critics, be do you really do you feel, how do I say it without hurting anybody's feelings? But I don't roll that way, so I'm just gonna say it. But man, book critics, I don't trust them. They're not worth anything. They
Well, and
I had people come up there and offered, people were offering to critique people's books. They got paid. They're sitting there, you pay me
yeah,
$300 for your book. I saw a lot of that. I see a
yeah, and
lot.
that's part of the industry. You can pay people to write you a trade review, and I got a really hurtful one back. And but it is one person's perception of the book. I don't think she really got the book. I don't, again, I think she was really upset that, like, I described that on an industrial planet there's acid rain. This is a fictional planet that doesn't exist, and it's a really industrial, there's not a lot of naturalness, and so I figured you'd probably have some acid rain. Even so, it's just a plot device. We don't spend much time on that planet, but she was really upset that I didn't go into a lot of detail about why the acid rain occurs. And so I was like, well, that's not the point. you know, the point is it's all about Stella, the superhero, and how she survives the acid rain. I didn't go into all this exposition. So, but that's her opinion. And as much as like it really hurts me, like when someone doesn't like my book, you can't focus on that. You have to focus on the people who do love it and who have written good reviews. And so, but like I've noticed people on Amazon can be really mean. Like when Amazon reviewers read it, they just I've read a lot of books I didn't like. I've never gone back and said 1 star and left a mean review. I don't say anything. And then I write reviews for people I love. So it's like people, I don't know why they have to be mean about it.
Because
You know? Yeah.
everything we do has to have, there has to be an asshole somewhere.
Right.
Oh, and for me, like book reviewers, I go there and I read I see a lot of ebooks. I see you know, at the same time, I see, a lot, there might be some mean reviews. I've seen some that put 5 stars out there and I'll go, really? Well, let's see. And go in there and I can't get past 10 pages. The grammar's wrong, the
Right.
layout's wrong.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just, yep, there's that 5 star. Well, how much did that
Mhm.
cost? $200, $300? You know?
Right. And
Uh,
and I can see where people get like you have to. I put my books through so much editing, so much proofing, so much editing. I absolutely try to spend time. I spent money on professional covers, like, and yes, you can still have, you're still given bad advice, you can still miss things, but I mean, you still have to put your, if you want your book to be successful, you have to spend time on it. So I can see people getting bad reviews. Some people who self-publish, they just, you know, they don't spend the time and they just pop their book out. And um, I don't know. Some people might be successful that way, but I've always got to work with an editor because they see things my eyes don't. So yeah.
I tell you what, we got about 5 minutes left. And we'll go ahead and we'll take some questions from the chat. If you guys have some questions to ask Angela, we can do it for about 5 minutes or so before we gotta let her go. I'm sure the bulldog is probably rocking the food dish.
Yeah.
What's your dog's name?
My dog's name is actually Stella.
Stella. Stella, get a bit of contender. Uh, so if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down. I want to just take this time while they're doing that to say thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with us and letting us see the insight of how you create because you're definitely one of the most. You're definitely a Hall of Fame guest. I'm not even kidding you.
Oh,
I'm not
geez,
saying that.
I'm
I'm not really saying
nobody.
that. I am really serious. The fact that you were a fan of the original Guardians of the Galaxy is for. I'm forever going to be. I'm going to be a fan forever and a day. Um, yeah, because because I just never. You never know what to expect from doing a show like this, and that just like made my day. I'm just like this. I'm a very happy man today.
Well,
But I'm looking forward to Seconds from Oblivion. We'll definitely,
yes.
yeah. So it's gonna be coming
I,
out. You think it's gonna come out in August, or you're
yes.
aiming for this thing? Okay,
I
and
mean, it
then
all depends. One of the things I've learned the hard way is like you can do all this hard work, and then if you work with an editor who is not on your same timeline or they just don't get back to you, I mean, it's all in other people's hands right now. So, really hoping that everyone sticks to their deadlines, and I think I can get it out August 1. But I would, definitely send you a copy, or I'd love to come back on and talk about it, or, this has just been really fun. So I really appreciate you having me.
no, I really let's see. Oh, yep. Star Lord is mentioning
Yep.
Guardians. We're talking about the original team Star Lord,
Yeah,
the
I've got
real
to
team.
find, I have it, it's still in the plastic, and I put it in our like fireproof safe in like one of our businesses because I just was so special. So I got to pull it out and I'll try to find it and send you a picture. But I still
Yeah.
have, yeah, yeah, it's really
Um,
cool.
All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Real quick, I'll let you know what's coming up tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, we have our second panel show of the month, or the week, I should say. We're going to be welcoming in writer, director, screenwriter Jeff Clark Jr., along with Pat Bradley will be here, Kelly Gregos, and then Michael Owen Stanley will be here tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And we're going to be talking about You Filthy Animal, which is a beautiful, beautiful short film and we'll be talking about that with the creators of it. That's beautiful. It's something you just never see anymore. You never see it. Um,
Right.
but they'll be here tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And so hopefully we'll see you here. Don't forget to drop the comments down below. Please leave me your 3 favorite guests of the show. If you want to put Angela down as one of them, I'm down with that right here. I mean, she's getting one of my votes right here. Uh, uh, thanks again to the chat for your questions, for your
Yes,
engagement. I
thank
really
you.
do appreciate it. And we will talk at you guys tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And stay right there for 1 second, Angela, and to the chat. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.